What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome to our show today. Okay, well, it's Tuesday, December 22nd, 2020, and we're unfortunately dealing with some technical issues where I can't hear the feed from RBN, but sure happy it's Tuesday, sure happy it's Tuesday, sure happy it's Tuesday. We have a lot to talk about today. Mike is in our control room struggling with the gremlins and the giant mutant hamster that powers it all. So what we're going to do is that we always do. We do news until we run out of news, and then we're going to open up the phone lines and let you call on in with your comments, questions, observations, and opinions. Okay, late last night, the House passed a 5,593-page COVID virus stimulus bill, and nobody got a chance to read it. 5,000 pages. I mean, even War and Peace isn't that long. And it sort of reminds us back when Nancy Pelosi was talking about Obamacare, saying we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what's in it, which really upset a lot of people. And I mean, the bill is just so huge. It takes 3 hours just to print it out, let alone actually read it and know what's going on in there. And as expected, it's loaded up with all kinds of giveaways, liberal causes, all kinds of bizarre stuff. Talk about pork. They threw the entire pig into this bill here. And basically, you know, the checks, the stimulus checks will be going out next week for $600, not $1,200, which won't even cover a month's rent for all of these struggling Americans who've been dealing with the loss of businesses and jobs because of the lockdown here. But other things that were in this COVID virus relief bill was $3.3 billion in grants to Israel, $453 million to Ukraine on top of the $400 million Trump released, $10 million for gender programs in Pakistan, $1.3 billion to Egypt, $700 million to Sudan, $135 million to Burma, $85.5 million to Cambodia, $1.4 billion for an Asia Reassurance Initiative Act, $130 million to Nepal, $4 billion for Navy weapons procurement, $2 billion for the Space Force, $2 billion for Air Force missiles, $208 million to upgrade the Census Bureau's computer systems, which frankly, they could have waited until the next count in 2030, $40 million for the Kennedy Center, and funding to discourage teenagers from drinking and hooking up. $193 million for federal HIV/AIDS workers to buy cars and car insurance overseas, and a feminist museum. So you get $600, and according to Nancy Pelosi, that's a significant amount. Really, it's a significant amount here. All righty, Van Morrison, the musician, is out there saying, you know, you need to remember, politicians have not missed a single paycheck since the lockdown began. They're still raking it on in. They've got their money coming on in, and that's all they really care about. Something else that was in the coronavirus bill, it allows a greater percentage of foreign workers to come into our job market. There are 17.8 million Americans who are jobless, and I think that number is probably very, very low. But apparently, provisions slipped into the bill allows the Department of Homeland Security and Labor Department to import more foreign labor competition against Americans at their discretion. And that, I think, is more bad news. Now, Joe Biden, of course, is out there, you know, talking about the passage of this relief bill, but he's calling for even more spending. And the House and Senate both passed their bills by veto-proof majorities, and basically includes massive pork projects and pet causes for politicians on either side of the aisle. So it's you know, great that you're going to get the $600. For most people, that's not even going to cover their Christmas shopping here. Getting on to the issue of election fraud, the Trump campaign has filed its first Supreme Court case regarding the Pennsylvania state court ruling. And they basically went to the Supreme Court trying to overturn moves taken by the Pennsylvania state Supreme Court. They want to flip 3 state Supreme Court cases that shifted the state's mail balloting law shortly before and then shortly after this year's general election. And the petition follows a related Pennsylvania case where Justice Alito and 2 other justices observed the constitutionality of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision. And Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, basically said that okay, and there we are. Little message from our control room. So they're out there trying to go to the Supreme Court on that, and the evidence keeps on coming on out here. Apparently, going on back to Pennsylvania, there is a very big illegal ballot drop that cannot be explained or accounted for. And so everybody's saying this is more of the ironclad proof of a rigged election. And this election was so rigged, even 30% of Democrats know that this was stolen. Okay. Now, apparently, President Trump yesterday met with House conservatives that are very concerned about voter fraud, and apparently more and more of them are going to stand up to reject the Electoral College votes and throw the election into the House of Representatives. And apparently the team led by Representative-elect Marjorie Taylor Greene plan to press Trump to continue his fight to shine a light on voter fraud. Absolutely, this is a big problem. It may even be the biggest problem currently facing our nation. My apologies to those of you who think immigration is the big problem, but definitely this has to be fixed, because if the Democrats get away with stealing this election, we will never have another honest election in this country, and we will become a one-party state just like the former Soviet Union. Now, White House advisor Peter Navarro claimed yesterday that more than 379,000 possibly illegal ballots were cast in Michigan. Now, the Michigan Secretary of State is saying, oh, that's nonsense. I mean, how could you even think such a thing here? But Navarro was on Steve Bannon's War Room and said that they're thinking that 379,000 votes were cast illegally. That's more than twice the victory margin of Joe Biden. All righty. Now, last week, Navarro released his own report saying the election may well have been stolen from President Donald Trump. It's kind of a study in foregone conclusions there. Rudy Giuliani is calling for an audit of all the Dominion voting machines in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And those Dominion machines are definitely part of the problem here. And apparently out in Arizona, Representative Gosar is giving Arizonans a path to victory for President Trump. These problems are coming up, and the last word I got is that Georgia may rescind its certification of its election. Now, here's a very interesting story. This is coming out of Natural News. We have commented on how there seem to be politicians who stay in office forever, even though nobody in their states or districts really like them all that much. And according to this article, apparently Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi were both beneficiaries of Dominion voting machines, which have been around for some time here. Now, the Antrim County forensic examination results revealed software that is designed to generate errors so that most of the ballots become adjudicated by a human being, possibly even outside the country. It is a totally messed up system. Now, Dick Morris is out there supporting Trump. He says he's getting it right on voter fraud and is basically begging him to keep the fight going through 2024. And I know there's a lot of us who plan on doing precisely that, because we have to get honest elections back, or we, the American people, have lost complete control over this government, and goodness knows what they're going to be doing now that they no longer need to worry about our opinion here. Okay, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett appeared on Hannity yesterday, and he was out there saying that a special counsel is critical for the investigation of Hunter Biden because no attorney general is going to indict his boss's son. In other words, once Biden is in the Oval Office, Hunter Biden is off the hook. And yes, that's just the way politics works in Washington, D.C. Now, in other news here, Julian Assange's fiancée sat down with Revolver News, basically talking about the globalists and deep state's plot to erase the First Amendment. They've already started chipping away at it with concepts like hate speech and so forth and so on. And basically saying that this whole attack on Assange is to basically set an example that just because you have interesting information or important information for the American people to know, you should have the good sense not to go public with it. All righty, getting on into COVID-19 here. Apparently, the rapid COVID tests used in Operation Moonshot will cause outbreaks in school because they are so inaccurate. And apparently, there was a scientist did a trial, found that they pick up just 3% of the asymptomatic cases. Okay. So once again, we're getting bad numbers from bad tests here. Over in Great Britain, the scientists and members of parliament are asking, where is the evidence of a 70% more contagious mutant COVID? And this is becoming a consistent theme across the net. Apparently, Professor David Livermore is saying that the escalating mood of crisis is unwarranted. It's obviously desired. But he's saying this mutant virus really may not be out of control. And he points out that there are already dozens and dozens of variations of COVID-19 out there. And they all seem to be behaving pretty much the same way. So again, as I said yesterday, COVID-19 has lost its fear factor. It's not scary enough, so they've had to come up with a super COVID or a COVID-2 or a COVID risen from the grave to suck on your blood or something like that, so that you'll be more amenable to getting that vaccine that they are just clearly desirous of shooting into everybody's arms. All righty, over in Europe, Dr. Wolfgang Wardarg, he's a pulmonologist, former head of a public health department, and Dr. Michael Yeadon, who's an ex-Pfizer research director for respiratory diseases, have petitioned the European Medicines Agency the first of this month to immediately stop clinical trials of the corona vaccines. 80,000 people have signed this petition so far. And apparently the flood of emails from supporters was so high that during the peaks, the EMA's server was temporarily unavailable. They just absolutely flooded it. Now, not too long ago, there was a report that came out of Johns Hopkins University and basically showed that COVID-19 did not appear to have an effect on the percentage of deaths of older people. Basically said COVID-19 has not increased the total number of deaths in comparison to historical data. But apparently the Johns Hopkins newspaper has now removed the article from their web server, stating that it was used to support dangerous inaccuracies on social media, meaning it doesn't fit the narrative of this slate wiper horrible pandemic that we all must get the vaccine for. And by the way, little side note, the government may be paying for the vaccines, but you are expected to pay for the shot. The economic harm from the lockdown is continuing. Apparently, 75% of Hollywood Boulevard is now boarded up. Now, I've been down Hollywood Boulevard many times, and it's typically lined with, billboards and posters and superheroes and Disney characters, and, crowded with tourists. But apparently, 9 months into this pandemic, the usual 10 million annual visitors aren't showing up. And the street performers are saying they're in trouble because a lot of them survive on the tips. They're buskers. They perform and put out a small bowl or a hat for contributions from the audience. And if there is no audience, there are no donations and contributions, and they are suffering too. Apparently, somebody did a survey of small businesses and found 90% have exhausted their Paycheck Protection Program loans, and labor market conditions are deteriorating. Consumer confidence crashes in December. Now, that's kind of odd because the corporate media only a week ago was saying consumer confidence was unusually high, all things considered, but that appears to have been an effort to flog us back into the stores and spend more money on Christmas goodies here. So we'll see where that goes. Now, here is an interesting little article. This is coming from AmericansForTaxFairness.org, and they're talking about how during this pandemic, somehow the net worth of U.S. billionaires has soared by $1 trillion to a total of $4 trillion. And they're pointing out that their wealth growth is so great, they alone could provide a $3,000 stimulus payment to every man, woman, and child in the country and still be richer than they were 9 months ago. So the money, even in the pandemic, the money is concentrating up there at the top. All right, Gloria Rivero is head of the World Travel and Tourism Council and said last week that mandatory vaccinations and this no jab, no fly policy will kill the travel industry. So they're in trouble as well. That, of course, will be a big problem for my former home out there in Hawaii. And people are getting out in the streets. They are just fed up with all of this nonsense. There was a medical martial law protest up in Vermont. There's been another lockdown protest in Salem, Oregon, one in downtown Toronto. Apparently, anti-lockdown protesters clashed with police in London. And so, yeah, people have reached the breaking point on here. Over in New Mexico, one of their sheriffs is refusing to enforce the state's strict COVID-19 stay-at-home order because he says it turns citizens into villains and breaches their constitutional rights. Okay. Down in Brazil, despite the reports of record coronavirus cases, thousands of sun seekers headed to Rio de Janeiro to the beaches, planting their beach umbrellas, chairs, and coolers with no space between them. So this fear campaign is clearly not working anymore. Over in Los Angeles County, they have lifted its ban on indoor church services following recent Supreme Court rulings in favor of houses of worship. So there's a little bit of good news that are coming out there here. Okay, this is an important story. It's coming out of Zero Hedge. And apparently studies are showing that lockdowns do not, in fact, control the coronavirus. They're saying whether lockdowns work to control the virus cannot be scientifically verifiable. The problem is bad data, no correlations, no causal demonstration, anomalous exceptions, and so forth. And so this whole lockdown thing, we're also hearing studies saying that these masks really don't do much of anything at all either. It's just, some dehumanization process or seeing how far they can push us before we actually start rioting in the streets, which I don't think is going to be too very long. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials, and we're going to be back after these few words. Welcome back to our show, and I think it's appropriate here to extend a warm thank you, heartfelt thank you to everybody who has been putting little gifts in the Christmas stockings for Republic Broadcasting Network because it is keeping us on the air. It's keeping our equipment working. You've all been very generous despite very difficult economic hardships that we're all dealing with right now. But for those of you who still want to throw a little something in the stocking, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. And of course, all of this donation information is up at the top of republicbroadcasting.org. The network thanks you. Okay, getting on back to the news here. We're talking about the economic fallout from all of this lockdown. 9 months it's been. Remember when they first started this nonsense? It's only going to be a couple of weeks till we flatten the curve, and it's been 9 months now. It's like, you know, they're trying to turn it into a lifestyle. And there are some people talking about it's going to go till next Easter. So anyway, apparently, British retailers are urging the British government to ensure food supplies as France has shut their border because of concern over this new, more infectious COVID-19, which everybody says is out there, but nobody can actually document yet here. Now, interestingly enough, and this is to be expected, Yale professor Dr. Nicholas Christakis is out there saying that when the pandemic is over, we can expect a wild, roaring 20s kind of attitude to take over the population. It'll make the 60s look like the 50s. He says there's going to be, you know, sex-crazed behavior all over. Hedonism is going to replace social distancing. And just what I need here, another sexual revolution, and I'm out of ammo. Now, a little bit of good news here. Apparently, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has announced Monday that Santa Claus will be allowed a waiver of the state's mandatory 14-day quarantine because he will be wearing a COVID mask while delivering the Christmas presents. So for all you little kiddies who are worried about that, Cuomo has definitely dealt with that issue here. Turning now to the international news here, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is blaming what he calls Iran-backed groups in Iraq for last Sunday's rocket attack on the Green Zone. And again, no evidence that Iran had anything to do with it. But apparently no deaths were reported in the attack. But some reports said Iraqis were injured by the barrage of rockets. Now, Iran is denying having anything to do with the attack. But Mike Pompeo is saying, you know, he's looked into his crystal ball and he knows it to be absolutely true. All right, the Pentagon is threatening Iran because we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Soleimani's assassination. And apparently General Kenneth McKenzie, who heads CENTCOM, is touring the region ahead of the anniversary of the January 3rd killing of Soleimani. The trip is unannounced, and it's basically being seen as a strong message to Tehran not to try and do anything in retaliation. Up in Afghanistan, and this is going to be a good news for the American families of the service people up there, the NATO forces are now outnumbering the U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Trump has been bringing troops home from Afghanistan. There is a mid-January deadline for there to be no more than 2,500 U.S. troops in Afghanistan. And so now the combined NATO force outnumbers the U.S. contingent. And so that's a good thing. We've been stuck in Afghanistan for, what is it, almost 20 years now? I'm actually losing track. Some of these wars are so long here. Pakistan apparently is on high alert in Kashmir yesterday as its prime minister warned India against carrying out any false flag operations in the disputed region after a UN vehicle in the Pakistan-held part came under attack. And so he's talking tough. I'm making it absolutely clear to the international community that if India was to be reckless enough to conduct a false flag operation against Pakistan, it would confront a strong national Pakistani resolve and be given a befitting response at all levels of the threat. Now, remember, Pakistan is a nuclear power. So it's getting tense over there. All righty, we are coming up on yet another commercial break here, and we'll be opening up the phone lines real soon. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about the international news here, and apparently the United States, Japan, and France held naval exercises in the Philippine Sea, and it involved a U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer, and they held anti-submarine warfare drills with a French submarine and a Japanese carrier. It's a rare joint exercise with France in the Pacific and a sign of things to come as the U.S. and its allies attempt to counter China in the region. So they're really, really pushing on that. Apparently, Reuters reported that the U.S., Japan, and France will hold their first joint land and sea exercises in May of next year. Okay, AFRICOM, pardon me, is sending a warning to al-Shabaab as U.S. troops begin withdrawing from Somalia. So the United States has announced a plan to begin withdrawing the estimated 800 American troops from Somalia by early next month, but it came with a warning to the al-Shabaab insurgent group. They should not test us. Basically, Townsend, the Army General Stephen Townsend, who's head of AFRICOM, said that they should not call the exit of U.S. troops a withdrawal, but rather the directed repositioning of forces to other bases in East Africa, most likely to Kenya. Alrighty, up in Canada, a little bit of a kerfuffle going on there because apparently Israel is illegally recruiting Canadian citizens to be in its army. And human rights activists are demanding an end to that practice because it violates Canadian law. Now, the Canadian government has so far refused to enforce its laws, allowing Israel to continue the practice, which tells you the Canadian government is just as compromised as the U.S. government here. Now, Canadians joined Zionist militias during the Nakba back in 1947 and 1948, and apparently the Israeli army recently has enlisted hundreds of Canadian citizens to its occupation military. All righty. Palestinians are up in arms because apparently Israeli authorities bulldozed an historic Jerusalem cemetery. It's called the Shuhada, which means Martyrs Cemetery in the old city of Jerusalem. And basically, Israel's Jerusalem municipality was continuing to dig and bulldoze in the cemetery, which is part of the larger Yusufia cemetery, and basically said it's a flagrant violation of the sanctity of the site, which carries the remains of Iraqi and Jordanian soldiers who fought in past Arab-Israeli wars. Okay. Apparently, the Israeli military is also warning Iran against an attack. And they're basically concerned over retaliation for the assassination of Iranian scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, who was apparently killed by Israelis. And Israel is hyping the threat of an Iranian attack in the region, and they're out there talking tough, saying that, Iran will discover the new axis of power that's in the Mideast. And of course, what Israel's referring to are all these countries which have been bribed and bought and cajoled into normalizing relations. In another message to Iran, apparently an Israeli submarine crossed the Suez Canal and openly surfaced in order to send a message to Iran. The move was approved by Egypt, who let them go on through. Now, Israel has snuck through the Suez Canal before, but this time they did it openly. Pardon me. And apparently the United States sent a nuclear-powered guided missile submarine through the Strait of Hormuz. And apparently this is the USS Georgia, and it's it's an Ohio-class submarine, used to be called a boomer. Due to strategic arms limitations treaties, the Georgia has had the Trident ICBMs removed, and each single launch tube now holds a carrier for 7 Tomahawk cruise missiles. Its designation is an SSGN submarine. That makes a total of 192 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles, some of which could have nuclear tips on them. So it's just another, tough move against Iran. I think Trump may get us into a war with Iran before Biden can take office, just to annoy him. It's a dumb reason to start a war, but look how easily Trump was maneuvered into cruise missile attacks on Syria, on those faked chemical weapons attacks here. All right, the United States Army has released a request for proposals to develop what is called an optionally manned fighting vehicle. This is a vehicle that can go into ground combat either with a crew or under totally automated control. They're hoping this will replace the Bradley fighting vehicle, which has never done very well despite all the billions of dollars developed on it. In fact, if you're familiar with the book and the movie Pentagon Wars, that was centered on the development of the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. But the new drone tank will have the option of being remotely operated, similar to aerial combat drones, but apparently they're also looking at an artificial intelligence adjunct where the weapon system will be autonomous on the battlefield. Meanwhile, the Air Force is out there testing a high-energy microwave weapon system to combat armed drones operated by terrorists and potential enemies. They're conducting the tests in Africa, and apparently the idea is that a drone hit with that much microwave energy will be zorched. And I can imagine that probably a lot of drone builders are already figuring, how can we defeat this? I don't know, line the thing with tinfoil or something like that. But apparently they're in the middle of a 12-month assessment, and they're in Africa right now. They're not saying where else they'll be doing the testing. There is a new satellite from Capella Space that's capable of taking high-resolution images anywhere in the world using a synthetic aperture radar system, which can take a picture in night or day, rain or shine, and even see through the walls of the buildings. And so they can peek at you, inside your home with this satellite here. Now, here is a reminder that just because we spend more money on our military doesn't mean we're getting the bang for our buck, so to speak here. This is from antiempire.com, and it's basically talking about all the problems of the new Ford carrier class. And we have been talking about all the problems the Gerald Ford itself has been having with the electromagnetic catapults, the radar systems, can't handle the interface to the F-35s. And apparently, according to this article, the Ford carrier class is flawed junk that will be impossible to rely on, because apparently one of the problems it has, in order to repair any of the major systems on board the carrier, the entire carrier has to be powered down, something you do not want to do in the thick of battle. But apparently the Navy has stopped releasing any data on the electromagnetic aircraft launch system and the AAG advanced arresting gear performance and reliability, which makes it sound like things are not working very well. And apparently the word is these systems have a high failure rate. In fact, it was described as staggering. Okay, economic news here. The World Economic Forum is admitting that the Davos 2021 meeting will reveal the Great Reset Initiative. So we're finally going to find out what that is all about. There are some speculating that this massive overinflation that we're seeing is to set the stage for whatever this reset is going to be. But I can guarantee you one thing right now, it will benefit the world's billionaires and not be very good for you. Because we are dealing with bankers, the most dangerous life form on this planet here. Over at the International Monetary Fund, you're going to love this one, okay? They have come up with a proposal that banks start using non-financial data to influence credit scores, including your history of online searches and purchases. And basically what they're talking about is having your credit score reduced because you bought the wrong book, visited the wrong website, or listened to a sermon online from the wrong Christian pastor. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think that's any of my bank's business. And, you know, why it should affect our credit scores, I don't know. But it's another way of coercing us into conformity with the official account of what everything is. All righty, over at Social Security, there's an organization called Open the Books, which works to expose government waste and fraud. And in their latest investigation, they have shown their spotlight on the Social Security Administration. Now, apparently, Social Security admitted to $8 billion with a B dollars in improper and mistaken payments. And apparently, when Open the Books dug a little deeper, they found no less than 6 million active Social Security numbers of people supposedly aged 112 and older, even though only 40 people over 112 exist in the entire world. So apparently, the root cause of this problem is failure to verify deaths. And somebody is still using those Social Security numbers to basically defraud Social Security here. Speaking of defrauding here, somebody has tallied up the costs of civil forfeiture and discovered that United States police have stolen a grand total of $68 billion with a B in the past 20 years from American citizens without anything approaching due process. And in contrast, criminal forfeiture requires prosecutors to prove that the owner of the property is guilty of a crime. So the actual criminals are better protected from having their assets seized than ordinary citizens are. Getting into the issue of guns and gun rights, and we know that Joe Biden is just drooling to come on out and get the assault rifles and, you know, all the rest of that here. Over at Walmart, which was considered a last popular bastion of gun rights, they're removing more guns from their sales displays, and they are turning records voluntarily over to the ATF. Now, the last time I was at a gun counter at a Walmart, they were already down to .22 caliber only in terms of weapons that you could buy. Okay. Apparently out in California, there was a guy who moved from Texas, and he went to lawfully register a firearm, and it resulted in having his home searched by 8 officers from the California Department of Justice who came with a warrant. There's a good reason not to try and comply with the law right there. I'm going to show up and knock down your door here. Again, in California, the Second Amendment Foundation and Firearms Policy Coalition are asking a federal court in California for an injunction against enforcement of the state's 1 gun per month restriction on the grounds that it violates the Second Amendment. And yes, it absolutely does. We'll see what happens there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the phone lines now. And again, the number is 512-248-8252. Getting into the realm of computers, and this is a little bit of good news. Apparently, law enforcement agencies from the United States, Germany, France, Switzerland, and the Netherlands have taken down the web domains and server infrastructure of 3 virtual private network services that were providing a safe haven for cyber criminals to attack their victims. And apparently these three services were active at insorg.org, safeinet.com, and safeinet.net before the domains were seized and replaced with law enforcement banners on yesterday. So there we are. Okay, people are still talking about SolarWinds. It's a huge, huge hack. They're looking for a scapegoat out there. According to one cybersecurity expert, the SolarWinds hack was the equivalent of a nuclear bomb, and that's going to feed right on into those who are saying that Russia's cyber attack is equivalent to an active war. Again, there's no evidence Russia had anything to do with it. But, the Russian hack story is out there all over the corporate media, and it sort of makes it look like the corporate media is actually writing U.S. foreign policy, not the White House. And, does anyone actually believe Russia would escape a U.S. election without tarring and feathering by the media? They did it back in 2016. They claimed that Russia had hacked the DNC servers, and it turned out it was a leak from inside. Attorney General Barr is out there saying Russia appears to be behind hack, and apparently they're backing off saying Russia did it because of all the people saying, where is your evidence? So Barr is out there saying that Russia appears to be behind a hack that targeted SolarWinds and affected several U.S. government agencies and the Dominion voting machines as well. But again, if you know anything about computer security, you know that cyber criminals are going to compromise systems all over the world and route their bad behavior through all of these servers all over the world. So all you can really track down is the very last server in the chain. So all anybody needs to do, the NSA could go over to Russian servers, compromise them, launch a cyber attack back at the U.S., and leave Russia to take the blame for it. Now, Biden's chief of staff, the incoming chief of staff rather, is saying the response to the Russian hack will go beyond sanctions. And that's very, very tough talk, and they're basically talking about hacks on Russia's infrastructure in retaliation. All right, we're going to start taking, well, actually, no, we're coming up on another commercial here. So let's see, real quick story. Apparently, NASA scientists have achieved long-distance quantum teleportation over 27 miles, paving the way for unhackable networks that transfer data faster than the speed of light. We'll be back with phone calls after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go to the phones to Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hello, Mike. Merry
Hello,
Christmas
Joe.
to you and Claire and to your family.
To you.
And I love the Santa hat. Watching you on YouTube now.
Yes.
Mike, first a quick question. This is important. Are you a Reginald Owen guy or an Alastair Sim guy?
I don't know enough about either one of those individuals to really say. So. What's your opinion? They were the ones who played Scrooge, the 38 and the 51 version. Oh, yeah. Well, I kind of liked George C. Scott's,
not bad. 1984.
That was not bad either.
Not bad.
I actually did Scrooge in a stage play
in the Muppet
years
version.
ago. Say again?
Michael Caine in the Muppet version.
Yes.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Also, Mike, I urge you and the listeners, look for a great movie. I watched it a couple of days ago. It's going to be on TCM again tomorrow. It happened on Fifth Avenue. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie before.
Well, you're not talking about Miracle on 34th Street, right?
No. It happened on Fifth Avenue with Victor Moore. He's a hobo that basically lives in this house that where the owner is elsewhere during the winter, and he basically takes over this house. So it's very, very good film. And I'm a little disappointed because I'm a little disappointed. You said your ammo is down, and I thought with the Extendivite, it gives you sort of like an indirect boost.
No, that's not on the label. I'm sorry, it's not here. Okay, what can I tell you?
So I made a bad purchase. I bought a year's worth.
Yeah.
Mike, first, can you tell me where you got that story of the IMF regarding basically social crediting to determine your credit score, your financial credit score? You know where you got that story from?
It's scrolled off the top of my talking points, but it is linked to the front page of, to one of the pages of whatreallyhappened.com. There's so much news these days, I'm going through 3 pages.
Shocking. Well, I guess I'm never surprised. And then quickly, 2 more items. The Prime Minister of Pakistan, I guess that's Khan. He actually use the term false flag? Because in the past, us tin hat people were called conspiracy theorists for using that term. Now we have a prime minister of a major country using it.
Well, everybody knows that false flags are a reality of war, and that just happens. And it's he did actually use that term according to the article I cited. Yep.
Okay, so we're not crazy. And then lastly, and this is my last item in case Joe from Tennessee is listening. This is my last item, Joe. Have you heard of Richie Allen was talking about it yesterday? This lateral flow test. How the British government had committed to using it, and now
Joe, I'm going to put you on hold. Okay, I'm going to put you on hold. Okay. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these few words.
Yeah, Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just wondering if you had heard anything about this lateral flow test, where apparently it's giving out to the disappointment, chagrin of the quote unquote experts, a lot of false negatives, whereas the PCR test is giving out false positives. So now they're not likely to continue using this lateral flow test. I wanted to know if you heard anything about that. And then I just wanted to, as I say goodbye, I wanted to wish Layla in Canada a Merry Christmas and a happy and healthy New Year, and to steal a phrase from the Zionists, next year in Jerusalem.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. The problem we have had with the COVID-19 situation all along is the inaccuracy of virtually every test that's out. There is no, really reasonably, like 90% accurate test that's being used. Some have false positives, like PCR. Some have false negatives. We were talking earlier in the show about the rapid COVID test is also coming up with false negatives. And so it's a real problem, and everybody's, massaging the numbers to get whatever their agenda happens to be here. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Doing
Mike,
fine.
I'll tell you something. When I look at this bill, this gets me so infuriated, Mike. You have no idea. All this money going to foreign countries. $600, lousy $600. All these people have lost their jobs, lost their businesses. And this is what they worth? $600?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I understand Congress gave themselves a raise on top of it. Okay? A good-sized raise, too. $20-something thousand. More than a lot of people make in this country. They got to, this is not only a slap in the face. To me, this is almost a declaration of war against the American people. It really is. There's no excuse for it. And to top it off, I understand Trump is getting ready to sign it. This goes to show you what I'm trying to say about Trump, what I've been trying to say before. I took a lot of flack about it. Again, compared to Biden, yes, he's good. But that doesn't mean he's any good. The man, at the least you could say, has no clue what he's doing. Here again, you go with Barr. Barr is stabbing him in the back again and again now, right?
Yes.
And he's showing his true face. And on top of that, now Barr's trying to start this nonsense with Russia, because now Barr's a neocon.
Yes.
He's still got Pompeo, who's also saying it's not. If there was interference, if there was any foreigners involved in this hack, and I kind of doubt there were any, I kind of think it was the CIA. But the biggest suspects of foreigners would be, number one, Israel, number two, China. And by the way, Israel's getting a nice chunk of money too, I understand.
Yes, they are.
With this thing. Okay? isn't right, Mike. And as far as Trump goes, yeah, he'll be better than Biden if he gets to stay. But I'll tell you this, maybe if you get a guy like Biden in there, people would start getting out of their comfort zone and start saying, it's Trump, he's playing 4D chess, he's doing this and he's doing that. They start to realize they really get up, really start showing their anger if Biden does get in there. And
Yes.
personally, I don't think Biden would be able to do too much anyway because he half the country is going to hate him, not even consider him president. I would never call him president.
No,
Okay, and most people
he's
I know
illegitimate.
say President Biden. He's not
We're under
president
no
of anything.
obligation
I don't think,
to respect an illegitimate president.
absolutely. And Harris would be just as much illegitimate. She got like 1% of her party's vote in a
Yes.
primary. So, and not to mention she doesn't know what she's doing. So, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I'll tell you the truth. I'm really getting so disgusted with Trump. He keeps making one mistake after another. He keeps hiring one slug after another. He gets rid. I understand this guy Rosen is nothing to write home about either. The guy is taking over the Justice Department now.
Yes.
He could have put Giuliani in there after he got rid of Sessions. Instead, he puts his neocon, deep state, CIA asset, going back, and Bush asset also, Barr in there. And because Barr gave him a little bit of flattery about he told him about the Russian hoax there. But Trump could have dealt with the Russian hoax from the get-go. First of all, by keeping Flynn, who was the deep state's biggest fear.
Yes.
So, people who say Trump is a good president, he's not. He's awful. The only thing is, if we get Biden in there, he'll be even more awful.
Yes.
So, in reality, we haven't had a good president since JFK. And by the way, some people have criticized me for saying JFK, and they come up with his brother, Teddy. I'm not talking about Ted Kennedy. Ted Kennedy was a dirtbag, okay? There's no question about it. He was not his brother, all right? He was a far lefty, dishonest, a drunk. He killed that woman there with his drunk driving at Chappaquiddick and then had it covered up. I'm not standing up for the Kennedy family. I'm standing up for JFK because I know my 3 friends over there mentioned something about the fact that I said JFK, as far as I'm concerned, was our last real patriot of a president because he really did take on the CIA. He wanted to dismantle the CIA. He got rid of Dulles, who was a real scumbag. He did a lot of great things, and he wanted to get us out of Vietnam. He didn't want to get combat troops into Vietnam, and he stood up to the Zionists. He told Israel, no, you cannot have nuclear weapons, and he threatened to go in there with troops to disarm them.
Yes.
Okay? That was our last great president, our last real, patriot. Reagan's the one who signed his 1986 bill, this horrible bill that exempts these vaccine companies from, big pharma in effect, from from being sued. So Reagan was, and plus, not to mention, Iran-Contra. We were distributing drugs. He was bringing drugs into the United States to fund the war against the Nicaraguan people. Okay.
Yes, the Contras.
No, I'm sorry. We haven't had a real great president since JFK. That was the last. Okay, he had flaws. He liked to play around. He liked to do a lot of other stuff. But the fact of the matter is, when push came to shove, he was an American patriot, and they killed him for it. All right? That's all. That's pretty much it. But I'm really, really disgusted with this bill. This is giving us the finger. That's all they're doing. They're giving us the middle finger. There is no reason for this. If Trump doesn't veto it and give a good reason for vetoing it so they don't override it, go to directly to the American people to describe it, well, I'll be honest with you, it probably won't matter one way or the other than who's our next president because you can't do this. This crosses the limit. Well, all these people being locked down, we didn't ask for the lockdown. They locked down the country. They're still locking down the country. All right? There's no reason for it. They're trying to push their vaccine on us now. They still got their mask mandates. Not the American people. This is the politicians, the ruling class, and the corporations that are doing this.
Mhm.
All right? And American people should have gotten, even in Europe, they're giving people like $2,000 a month or something like that. All right?
Yes.
Most of their salary. If they're supporting the businesses that are having to be closed. All right? Not even doing that here. Okay? This is predatory capitalism. By the way, when I say predatory capitalism, I don't mean capitalism as a whole. I mean a certain type of predatory capitalism where these billionaires get richer and richer and everybody else gets poorer and poorer. They need to have their money confiscated, given to the people. We need something new in this country. Like, I believe we need real populism. Only real populism will work.
Well, that's why they hate Trump so
liberalism-
much.
Exactly, but he's not a real populist. That's the problem. He talks a good game, but when push comes to shove, he puts the same so-called swamp, I call them sewer creatures, in there. People like Barr.
Yes.
Barr shouldn't have been in there.
Nope.
Neither should Pompeo. Neither should Haskell. But he puts these people in there, and then surprise. Well, that's all I got to say, Mike. Okay. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the phone call here. And, you know, I don't agree with Donald Trump calling Washington, D.C. a swamp. To me, it's a septic tank in which the really big chunks float to the top. So we're going to go back to the phones here to Steve Elkins. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, to add to your last caller, they were talking about Ted Kennedy being far left. On top of that, I always call him a limousine liberal.
Yes.
So that was a good attachment to him. Question on the stimulus breakdown. Is that on your website?
No, I don't have the, there is a breakdown of the pork that went in there, but it's not a complete breakdown of the entire stimulus bill. It's 5,000 pages long, and a lot of people haven't gotten through it yet. And as a matter of fact, I'm looking on Fox News where apparently some lawmakers are now coming on out and saying, we didn't know that this provision was in there, and they're starting to complain.
That's pretty amazing. Question, actually more of a comment. You talked about the cyber attack. They're kind of putting those feelers out there. We could get attacked, a cyber attack, take down something, the grid or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Never count out, you mentioned the term already, false flag, but never count out the United States doing a false flag and blaming Russia for a cyber attack on the U.S. industry.
Absolutely.
Never count that out because they're famous for it.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. I mean, look at 9/11.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the example I use is 9/11 inside job. So I think if there is one, it will not be from Russia, of course, but they will get the blame for it. It'll be a U.S. false flag. Yeah,
I agree.
That's it for me, Mike. Have a great show. Talk to you soon.
All right, thanks an awful lot here, and we're going to switch over to Marco in Alabama. Hello, Marco. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, good evening, Michael.
Good evening.
First and foremost, I want to say, dude, that Matt Bracken said it best. In third world countries like America is becoming, when a new leader gets elected, the globalists, the deep state, the NWO, whatever you want to call them, approach this new leader and ask them, silver or lead?
Yes.
Most of the time, these leaders say silver.
Yes.
And they enrich themselves and run the people down the river.
Yep.
Trump says lead, and we have nobody, dude, that's willing to back him, man. I mean, I'm sorry. I can't see how this country stands after January. I mean, dude, it is horrifying. It is absolutely freaking horrifying to know that this could be the last time that I go to the casino. This is the last time that I could go to the movies. Because what they want to do is they want to turn everybody into a freaking chicken McNugget, man.
Mm-hmm.
And what is this $600, man? Is this Rick Harrison's Pawn Stars for, what you're worth as an American citizen paying into this tax, all of these taxes and all of this, health insurance, car insurance, only for them to flood this country with illegal immigrants, dude, and all that stuff? I'm sorry. The thing is this, man, is that I don't want this war to go kinetic, but it's going to have to. It's going to have to. I mean, because, man, these people, man, we cannot go on like this. I mean, to sit here and know, dude, that on January 27th, dude, I can't I probably won't be able to get a vacation anymore or anything like that too, because we're becoming a socialist country and they're going to take that benefit away from me or something. Who knows what the horrors are going to be, man? And I'm not going to take that vaccine, dude. I'm sorry, dude. I mean, you're crazy. I mean, to sit here and watch that lady, dude, in chat and just fall out, dude, after she had taken the vaccine and all that stuff, and the MNRAs and the reprogramming of your genetics. And what propensities of health problems that you could possibly have, dude, or you can amplify your immune system so you're hypersensitive to the point, dude, where you're going to be living in a bubble anyways. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. I hear your anger.
I mean, man, dude, these conservatives, man, I mean, these people are freaking lost it, dude. I mean, conservatives are being brainwashed on mainstream, you turn on your radio, conservative news, into accepting all of this. I mean, dude, this is horrible, man, that we're going to sit here and give all this. I mean, you know that in this bill, money is going to go to illegal immigrants, dude.
Yes.
Money is going to get illegal immigrants retro pay, and all of that stuff is included in this. Who the heck signs this, man?
Well, apparently Trump is going to sign it, and he doesn't have much choice because...
I'm telling you this, man. All the immigrants of the last 20 years, they're gone. We're gone. We're throwing them all out, dude, because this was the worst thing that has happened to us. Ever since the 1967 Lottery Act, dude, under Ted Kennedy and all that stuff, man, bringing this multicultural lottery here for what? What's happening? White people are being attacked. You know, we're not even, I mean, it's like you look at a commercial today, dude, on television, and it's like we don't even exist, dude, when we're 67%, dude, of the population, dude, in the country. I mean, seriously.
Yes.
I mean, I am on board, dude, with throwing them all out, dude. Legal and illegal immigration has killed this country, and it has brought these people, dude, to these socialist ideas, and that's why, dude, we're getting ripped off, dude, because we have all these people, dude, that want to implode our freaking country, dude, and want to destroy us from the inside, Cloward and Piven. I mean, Tom from Florida is the man, dude. I mean, that is how every American needs to be, dude, because both immigration, both legal and illegal, has killed this country and all that stuff, man. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care, dude, about, we need them to cut grass. We need them to pick strawberries. No, you need to get up off of your butt, dude, and accept whatever job you're going to get, dude, because at the end of this month, we're going to see who all the unemployed people are in America, dude, when that CARES Act, dude, comes up. The average American is $6,000 in debt, dude, in back rent. And and probably just as much, dude, with utilities and everything like that. And they're going to give us a pittance, a pathetic pittance of $600, dude. No way, man. Dude, war is on, dude. Whoever's about it, let's go. Let's get it going. Have a good afternoon.
All right. Well, I hear your anger. And again, especially when you consider how much money the government has taken from the American people over the years, and then for them to give us back $600 of our own money and have Nancy Pelosi say, well, that's a significant amount. What world does she live in? I mean, really. All righty. We have several phone lines open, area code 512-248-8252, and we're going to go to James in Charlotte. Hello, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, good afternoon, Mike.
Good afternoon.
I'm still shaking a little bit after the last caller. He really got my anger up there.
Yes.
With, what he was saying. We're just, to add to that, we're just days away, are we not, from possible massive evictions of people from their homes.
I don't hear that there was anything in the coronavirus relief bill to extend that moratorium. But, yeah, we're looking at millions of Americans being made homeless.
Yeah, I don't know if you've gone over. I just joined the program just a few minutes ago, but I don't know if you've gone over all of the seemingly endless list of countries, foreign countries and special interests who are getting a piece of the stimulus bill.
Yes.
Including $500 million to Israel, the biggest single expenditure to any foreign country, of course, is now, as you might expect, to Israel. I was just curious, and I did a little calculating. If the approximately $900 billion were divided up equally among the 332 million people, that's the official population, it's probably more, but
Yes.
332 million people in this country, every man, woman, child, and infant would receive $2,746
Yes.
instead of 600. If you took that 900 billion and divided it among the 128.2 million household units, every household would get $7,024. And if you divided it among the...
James, I got to put you on hold. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with James and Charlotte. And James, you were sort of running down the numbers of how much Israel got versus what the American people are getting out of this bill.
Yeah, I just really started my figuring. I'll go back. We're supposed to be so satisfied with this $600 check we'll be getting of our own money, and just to show who's getting the lion's share and who's getting the mouse's share of this huge $900 billion bill. I calculated that every single person in this country, if it were divided equally, would get $2,746. And if you divide it, obviously, it's that they're not going to send a check to every single person. But if they were to send a single check divided equally to every household unit, every household in the country would get $7,024. And if they were to send a check to every family, a household unit is kind of, it's not necessarily a family. It's just any group of people living in the same address.
Yes.
But if they were to divided that $900 billion up equally and send a check to every family, every one of the 83.4 million families, each family would get $10,792. So that's how much. I mean, I don't know what percentage is actually of that 900 billion is actually going to Americans. I imagine it's
obviously not much.
A quarter. Yeah, but that's just how unfair it is. And of course, the Congress gave itself. I'm not sure if it was the Senate. I know the House voted itself a raise, which that's also in it as well. So that's the cherry on top of the very distasteful ice cream sundae.
Yes.
That's all the numbers I've got for you. If it doesn't make you nauseous.
Well, it's what we expect from this government, which keeps taking from us. And, now that, we're all in serious trouble because of governmental mismanagement of this whole pandemic, they sort of drop a few crumbs on us. And like you say, they're expecting us to be grateful. I don't know anybody who's grateful. Everybody I know is actually insulted by this.
I think I'll probably donate the check if and when it ever arrives to some charities, and I think Republic will get some.
That would be a really good thing. Supposedly, the direct bank transfers go out next week, and so we'll see what happens there. Anyway, James, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Al in Canada, and Al, I'm probably going to have to take you through this next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Your last caller and the caller before him. Wow. That's a crime, right, against humanity. And just to make it even more interesting, if you take $900 billion and divide it by 90 people, how much do you think they're going to get?
Quite a bit.
Isn't that how it really works, Mike?
Yes.
That's kind of really how it works. Even if you were to give all the individuals in the United States, $900 billion, right?
Yes.
Every single person that's in there right now, just give them their $7,000 or $3,700, whatever it is. It's all going to end up in the same place anyway. It's just who gets to spend it first, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's all it's about.
Yep.
That's all it's about. That's,
and somewhere down the road,
in a nutshell,
they're going to tax all this money back, because the government doesn't believe in giving anything away.
Tax it back. That's a joke, for crying out loud. Up in Canada here, we get something called CERB.
Mm-hmm.
It's $1,000 every 2 weeks, Canadian, tax-free.
Okay.
But of course, come next year when you file your taxes, you're going to have to declare this. And there were a few things that you had to qualify for. Like, number one, you wouldn't qualify for this if you hadn't made $5,000, I think it was in the last 3 months or 4 months or something, or 5 months, whatever it was, 6 months. And on top of that, you can't be working, right? So you basically lost your job. Well, here's the thing, and this is the good part. See, if you're making like $25 an hour up here in Canada, you're going to get about $1,200 every 2 weeks from unemployment, and that'll go in your pocket. And there's probably around $200 of income tax that's kicked back. Honestly, you don't pay it; it's kicked back, right?
Okay, Al, I got to put you on hold. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Al in Canada. We're talking about how Canada is taking care of their people during this pandemic. So, Al, just please continue.
So you get about $1,000 every 2 weeks.
Yep.
A single person. You don't pay. There's no income tax on that. So come next year around February, March, you're going to have to declare your income, and obviously you're going to owe. And then, of course, the fraud was massive. They figure around 30 to 40% of CERB payments went to people that weren't, they didn't qualify, and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of scare you a little bit in the news about that, and Trudeau, they'll come in with a story. Well, Trudeau says, well, don't worry about that right now. Don't worry about that. I mean, he's so young, right? He's got all this time on his hands. Or should I say he has his pen to the paper to do whatever the hell he wants. Because we're in a quote unquote pandemic, and it is a minority government, Mike.
Yeah.
All he needs is a non-confidence vote, and it's all up for grabs. And obviously everybody knows how stupid that would be right now. But in the end, here's what's going to happen to this country. We're going to go bankrupt.
Yes.
There's debt up here, and you saw the chart. I sent it to you. Has escalated 80% in the last year. Mike, it's almost double.
Yes.
Our debt doubled. Jesus. You want to talk about something that's not sustainable. Like, this is insanity. You know what it's like, Mike, when you see this sort of thing and it hits you in the head? It's like up there in Greenland, where all these glaciers are melting, and they're receding over the, they got photographic proof from 120, 140 years ago. But here's the kick. It's not because of climate change. It's because of lava.
The volcanoes. Yeah. Yep.
Right. Yeah. The same thing that, supplies Iceland with free heat.
Yes.
All they got to do is go down a little bit, run some pipes, collect that heat, and boom, bring it upstairs to where we need it. It's crazy. But, and there's another little truth right there. That's what it's all about. And has it been, have you heard about this at all, Mike?
What, Iceland's geothermal?
Well, you have, but in mass media, mainstream crap, like, this should be a good thing. Hey, you know what? We're not as screwed as we thought we were. Now we're as screwed as we thought we were because they're not reported at all. It doesn't fit their agenda.
No, I mean, you've got the
Politicians.
petrochemical companies, the oil companies. They're just as much interfere with the government as any other large corporation. We've had geothermal out on the Big Island in Hawaii. Unfortunately, the last eruption, not the current one, but the last eruption actually swallowed the geothermal plant, and I don't know if they've rebuilt it yet.
Mm. Yeah, that thing right there, you got to be careful. I mean, you don't build like a geothermal plant in the middle of a fault line. That's just silly, right?
Well,
that's bad planning. Period.
Yes. Yep.
Mike, just really quick, and then I swear I'm going to go. This whole electric car thing, I think it's gorgeous.
Yes.
Because there are less moving parts. Things should last a lot longer. It means less jobs.
Theory.
But anyway, in theory. But anyway, now think about this. If this was actually seriously thought of by these greeners, right, they would have made mandatory battery packs for all cars. Universal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a universal thing. And, if you got a big truck, then you'd need two of them. And if you have like a semi, the bigger the truck, the more batteries you put on. So what they do is they travel down the road, right? Mm-hmm. And instead of filling it with gas, you go in and they change your battery, and it takes 7 or 8 minutes.
Yep.
But, if you have more, it's going to take up to a half an hour. It could take. And so what they do is they do that, and then all around that filling station are solar panels, and they recharge the batteries. And they do it properly, right? They do it properly, which means it has to run down to a certain level, and then it has to charge right back up.
I'm not sure whether solar panels would provide enough energy to support the current volume of traffic on the roads if it were all electric. The other problem, and I'm all in favor of electric cars. I wanted to buy one when we got our last car, but we couldn't afford it. But the problem is that those refineries are still going to be pouring out the gasoline. There's no way to turn it off, and so we're going to have a huge buildup of waste gasoline. What are they going to do? Set it on fire to get rid of it?
Well, eventually, you can't give it away. So it just peters out on its own. You can't sell this stuff anymore.
That's exactly the problem.
You know what I mean, Mike?
You can't stop producing.
We're going into a lockdown up here. Well, it's not just that though. I'm going down into a lockdown in another day for a month. The last time this happened, a liter of gas went down to 72 cents.
Yes.
Now it's at $1.04.
Yep.
And if it continues on that way, and then it's 60, and then it's 50, it's over, right?
Yes.
It all goes bust. That's what should happen naturally. But of course, the government, they make partners in their crime. These lobbyists and whatever other, these rich folks that line their pockets with extracurricular activities, or nice little benefit here or there. Let's do a fundraiser, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. It's over. And this is the problem. Pelosi's 80 years old. What the hell's wrong with her? She's a narcissist. She's power hungry.
Yes.
That's all there is to it. She wants the power. These people are insane.
They're sociopaths.
And we're insane for allowing this stuff to happen.
Agreed.
So, like a lot of people have said, this is probably going to get bruisey.
I'm afraid it will.
It's going to come to fisticuffs. It's going to come to fisticuffs. And in your case, it's going to be, at the end of the barrel of a gun.
Afraid you're right.
They made their bed.
Yes, they did.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate your time. You have a good one.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. Merry Christmas to you. We're going to switch over to W in Texas. Hello, W. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Mike, so one thing is I think business owners, they need to get a better understanding of, I think all of us really need to get a better understanding of these therapeutics, because right now we're all just hearing this echo of vaccine, lockdown, mask up, social distance. We're not actually hearing about these therapies as much as we probably should. It needs to be like on billboards. Here are the therapies that have been working, from hydroxychloroquine to ivermectin to quercetin. And today they had like 120 scientists say vitamin D actually works. Of course, we knew that 9 months ago, but 120 scientists from the U.S. and the UK just put out a report, and I guess it's getting a little bit of traction, saying that vitamin D3 works. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, people, business owners, lay people, whoever, they just need to understand what are some of these therapies, because a lot of people are sort of in the middle. They don't really know what to think, and they think the vaccine is the only,
Well, that's what they're being told by the corporate media.
Right, exactly. And the last thing I guess I want to say is, I think someone mentioned earlier, all these people being evicted potentially next year. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean with the trajectory that we're on? Are they going to be required to get a vaccine, to get housing, to get food stamps? I mean, it's like
Could very well be.
Make people dependent. They make people
very
dependent.
Well be.
They take away their economics and then make them dependent, and then they're going to tack on a vaccine on top of all that. So that's kind of what I see, unfortunately, maybe coming. But that's my comment.
Yeah, well, for a while they were talking about making the vaccine, or making the $600 payment from the COVID relief bill, making that contingent on accepting the vaccine. Right. And, both Claire and I said, we'll live without the $600. I mean, it's too soon. We don't know what's happening. We're both old enough to remember what happened back in 1976 with the swine flu debacle. And some of these, if you look at that list of 27 known adverse effects put out by the FDA, some of them will not manifest for weeks, if not months. And so, I certainly we're going to delay getting the vaccination and hopefully not get it at all. But again, the government is looking for any kind of coercion to get people to take the vaccine. And, Claire and I were both considered in a high risk group. We were exposed recently. We had our tests. The test came back negative. We both do take a lot of vitamin D.
One last thing, black people. I'm a black person.
Yes.
So it's funny because they're pushing this so hard on. They're saying it's the irony of saying you have been disproportionately affected. Well, let's talk about black people real quick. There's African American black people. There's black people in Africa. I just literally went on the John Hopkins site looking at all the deaths. I just went through the top 10 African countries. It was 50,000 just in the top 10. It went from 25,000 South Africa to number 10, Democratic Republic of Congo at 500. It dropped just that quickly from 1 to 10. 50,000 people just in those 10, and there's probably 60, 70,000 deaths reported. It may or may not be more, but the point I'm making is there's 1 billion people, 1.2 billion people in Africa. There's 40 million black people, and right now they're saying 50,000 African Americans have died, and I just pointed out 50,000 Africans have died. That doesn't make sense, Mike.
No.
Those things don't add up.
No, so the numbers have never added up.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call, and we're going to switch over to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, aloha, Michael. Hey, I was glad to hear W there. I was just mentioning a couple of days ago. I hadn't heard him in a bit. But you better keep it down because, whenever they hear a very intelligent black man, they start Uncle Tom and all that stuff. And then, of course, they're not racist, but everybody else is. But nice call by W. I'm glad to hear him. Also, James was excellent. And that caller before him, boy, he's got my kindred spirit. I hope he calls in more often. But, Michael, this is so shameful. I mean, these people that are supposedly representing us give other nations more money and more care than they do their own people. They're the people that build this country, pay the taxes, fight for this nation.
Well, because they don't have to worry about elections anymore.
Yeah, yeah, that's obvious, but it's so shameful,
Mm-hmm.
and it's shameful, it's immoral, it's unethical, and then to come out here and tell the black man, we're behind you, and the Hispanic, we're behind you, and the Asian, we're behind you, and well, don't say nothing about the white. You can't do that, or you're a white supremacist or whatever. You're a sympathizer, but it's just so doggone outrageous, Michael. And then, somehow we've let this go on, and I think that's the question: how do we turn this around? But you look at the status of this world. I mean, what will there be to change this? I mean, will there be a worldwide revolt against all organized governments, or
it could happen? It could happen.
Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering. I mean, hey, everybody's our brother. Al from Canada, and I always enjoy Al's calls. We got so many on here, Michael. Your audience is just unbelievable, led by the head of the Rivero Rangers, and Michael Rivero, and counterpart Claire Rivero. But
yes,
I think people are trying to draw a line to where do we begin and where do we conclude, and we're just not doing a good job at that. I mean, I've heard these guys call in, and I've heard various guys say, this Constitution, but they're not even on in all 50 states. If we put an all-out effort, it would probably take us 20 years to even get one of them on. So we're kind of limited, as I've mentioned in the past. We've got to work with the Republicans. I don't see any working with the Democrats unless you're Antifa or, something like some outrageous group. There's nothing for the middle of the road or regular or even conservative guy. So it's like we're kind of in a bad status, but there has to be something for these people that give more and more. I mean, this is the only nation in the world who has a foreign policy for the benefit of a nation other than themselves, for economic benefits other than themselves. I mean, can you tell me? I mean, one of the other nations aside from Israel, which I don't know, what does Israel get this month? Is this more settlement relocation or whatever? I don't know. But then you've got, I mean, I heard Portugal was it? I mean, what is our interest in there? I mean, is that where these politicians are fleeing to, or what is our interest with giving all these people, other people, money and all these incentives? Have you heard anything on that?
Well, I mean, this is all basically just bribes to those governments to go on doing what the United States tells them to do.
Well, yeah, I don't even think they need to be bribed anymore, because the United States will just tell them, look, we'll put this guy in, and then we'll just come take your country, and it'll be the 50 umpteenth whatever state of the United States. Okay. I don't even think they have to bribe them now. I think they just strong-arm them into these agreements and things like that. But anyway, Michael, have a great show, and I'm going to listen to you, offline, because I always love hearing your commentary. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. And we're going to switch over to Jim in Brooklyn. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Oh, we lost Jim in Brooklyn. All right, then we're going to go to Ken in New York. Hello, Ken. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Just a commentary about the debt. I'm not concerned about it. The debt that can't be paid won't be paid.
True. But they'll go on taxing us in the illusion, that we're paying the interest on the debt. The United States government has not paid the principal on the national debt since Vietnam days.
Understood. And when nobody's working, there'll be nobody to pay the taxes. The IRS, you may be able to do to the IRS and the Fed what couldn't be done for 100 years.
At a topographical map of Mars, you start with the Tarsus region, which is this huge uplift. It's got all the volcanoes like Olympus Mons. And then on almost the opposite side of the planet, there is a gigantic impact feature And what I speculate happened is that there was a horrendous asteroidal impact that literally splashed the atmosphere off the planet, at which point the water boiled off into the near vacuum. But there is still water on Mars. It's very briny so that it remains liquid in the extreme cold. And they're now speculating there may be more water deep underground here, but they're still trying to sort that one out. Okay, I think I mentioned this yesterday, but we're going to go through it again here. NASA is moving the Mars Sample Return Program into the next phase of development. And basically, some people within the planetary science community worry about how the cost of that program will affect other projects. And with Joe Biden coming into the Oval Office, that's a significant worry. I don't expect him to be a tremendous supporter of space exploration. But let's assume that this mission goes off. Apparently, NASA announced on the 17th that it approved moving the Mars Sample Return Program into Phase A of development. Now, having my experience on Viking, I would strongly recommend that NASA biologically isolate those samples before they come back to Earth and open them within a sterile facility like the old Lunar Receiving Laboratory, which was built to guard against the possibility of pathogens coming back from the moon, which for the moon was a long shot. But again, on Viking, on the labeled release experiment, it showed data indicating there is currently indigenous microbial life on Mars. And so they're definitely going to want to take the appropriate cautions here. As a lot of you are aware, I'm very questioning of a lot of modern cosmology, in particular the Big Bang theory. And apparently a group of scientists, including Case Western Reserve University's astronomy chair, Stacy McGall, have published research contending that a rival idea to the popular dark matter hypothesis more accurately predicts a galactic phenomenon that appears to defy the classic rules of gravity. Now, I have mentioned in the past that this whole dark matter theory was come up with because the mathematics for universal expansion and the Big Bang just don't seem to work out. But in classic fossilized science practice, rather than go back and question the original assumption, they keep trying to rework things. And it draws a lot of parallels with epicycles, which was a theory that was designed to reconcile the observed motion of the planets with the church-favored Earth-centric model of the universe. And epicycles, of course, holds the record as the world's longest-running scientific goof over 400 years. And so basically, these astrophysicists have established a new hypothesis called modified Newtonian dynamics or modified gravity to basically try and make it all work and have happy numbers at the end of the report. Okay, we are coming. There's the music. We're here at the end of the show. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Please spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. It is really important. We'll see you tomorrow. Aloha, America.